you guys and us guys played the same game. We know because we still get shot in the face with like M870s and those sorts of things, and it's frustrating. We totally get it. But like I said before, this current situation is we don't have a situation where we're like, okay, today the game is fixed. It's Thursday, and after this maintenance, it's all going to be good. That's not where we're at. Unfortunately, that'd be great, but we have a lot of work to do. That's true. So with these big issues requiring big fixes, we want to keep having this conversation over a period of time because that's what it's going to take. But we want your involvement on that. So on that note, we thought it would be good today to go through what the biggest issues are so we can get on the same page as you guys. Well, I think we are already. That doesn't mean that since we're on the same page, it doesn't mean that all the issues are fixed right now, but it means that we want to get to that point. Make sense?
It does.
Are you with me?
Yeah,
on this?
I'm with you. I'm following.
Right. Good.
I'm
okay,
also
cool.
reading chat at the same time. So
get this mic out of your mouth, dude. All right, I'm sorry. Try. Nerf console aim assist, not shotguns. All right, these are the types of things, Nero, that we want to talk about.
Yeah.
Actually, the first thing I have on my list is the shotgun/sentry issue that has been probably the biggest cause of frustration for people in the Dark Zone.
Yeah.
Obviously, I mean, I'm not guilty of it yet, but I have been collecting up a set of Sentry to do a very similar thing because, I mean, I get it. Like, that's where the meta's shifting at the moment.
Yeah, you're in a situation where this is just a meta, so that's like you either are tempted to do it, but you know that this is not entirely fair with the other players, or you're trying to do something else, but you put yourself in a situation where you're just not as powerful as the other ones. So that's not a nice situation to be in.
But here's the thing. We're aware that the meta is always going to shift. That's what happens in every game that has an online component, has an element of humans, and has RPG mechanics and gear and these sorts of things. I mean, you know, I'm a big Dota fan. That game is amazingly complex, but it still requires balance changes 15 years. It's always going to shift, right? Similarly with us and every game. And that's not a problem. That's fine. But right now, the meta isn't fun, which is the problem.
And I see in the chat already some people saying balance the PvP and everything. And yeah, exactly. That's one of the aspects that makes PvP really unbalanced and not fun right now because of this kind of meta that is like, it's not as if you have one meta, but you actually have alternatives. Right now, you just don't. So
no, exactly. And I think
you do, but
the thing, which would probably be the other. Well, I mean, there's kind of three things. You've got your Sentry shit already. No, I mean, and that's kind of the next thing on my list is the Deadeye hipfire shotgun. You've got your Deadeye hipfire, and you also have Reclaimer. Yeah. Right? And all of these things lead to a not fun experience because either you're getting like locked by consumables and, you know, fire and explosions and these sorts of things, or you're being one shot, or you're just being hip-fired at by someone running Deadeye, which would be okay if you weren't being one shot. Like, our game isn't, and our game is and shouldn't be that game.
Yeah.
So we gotta, that's one of the things we have to work on. Again, that isn't something that can be done like in a weekly maintenance. We have to have a big look at exactly how those things will work. The other things I have on this list, which kind of fits in both into PvE and PvP, is the NPC scaling at end game. And I've talked about this on the stream a lot. The 1 to 30 experience, scaling in there works great. Yeah. And I think people can agree with that. We'll see what chat says. I think people find frustrating, and I find frustrating as well, is like you'll be running like a heroic incursion, like a heroic underground or incursion, or the DZ5 and 6. Yep. And regardless of how gear capped you are, you're getting one shot a lot of the time. Yep. And that's not cool. Yep. So you're not rewarded for the investment you put into your gear. Yep. Don't love it. Okay, but we'll anyway. So and actually that you actually alluded to it before, solo players. Yeah. Because a lot of this affects them more than it affects other people. Obviously, getting one shot, you can't be revived if you're a solo player. Yep. That sucks. And also the ammo issue. Yep. So with sponginess,
Yeah.
And
also what is linked to that, I was checking if you put it in a list, but what is linked to that is also the scaling between difficulty modes, especially like it's pretty obvious in the underground. Like when you're playing hard mode, you can actually run through hard mode and wreck everything, and then you try challenge mode and suddenly you get wrecked. And there is something off here, obviously, because this is not how it should be. Like if you can very easily run through hard mode, and that means the rewards you're going to get there are probably not super interesting for you. You should actually be able to do challenge mode.
Exactly.
You should not just get completely wrecked. So obviously there is something off there, which also has to do partially with the NPC scaling and the difficulty.
Totally. Actually, someone it's going really quickly, guys. Sorry, it's hard for us to keep up with chat. Someone was saying that they feel like the loot is off, and I kind of agree. And it's something that I knew, but I've noticed even more playing from 0 to 30, or 1 to 30. But you recognize that you have a situation where, like, I'm level 24, but I'm using level 20 guns, and then I get a level 24 gun, and I feel so much more powerful.
Yep.
That's something that we don't have in the end game right now. It's like, and I did mention this at the time when the G36 came out, that the issue wasn't necessarily that the G36 was overpowered. It was that our scaling was off.
Yep.
Right? And it really highlighted that fact. I think people can agree with that. But we need to exactly figure out what the solution is to that.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll get there.
Yeah.
All right. What else do I have on this list? Gear sets. I mean, obviously, a lot of people are going towards ones like Sentry. I mean, of course, it gives you by far the biggest damage output. You have things like the Reclaimer, like I mentioned before.
There's that, and that also links to the reward aspect you were mentioning before, also, and like the items also, because the fact that there are gear sets that are obviously better than other ones means that when you're doing this activity that's going to take some time, that's going to be hard, and the reward you get is one of the gear sets that are not interesting. Most people think are not interesting. That makes it very frustrating. So on top of making rewards just feel better, also actually having items that are meaningful and that are actually feel like an upgrade, that's something super important.
Yes, exactly. And that's something that I've also put on my list is named weapons.
Oh yeah.
Like what? Like there's a reason we don't use them.
Yeah.
They're not very good.
Yeah.
But that shouldn't be the case. So that's one of the things that definitely needs fixing.
Absolutely.
One of the comments I've seen in chat a lot, not just today, but over other days, and it kind of works with the whole Dark Zone thing, is that people feel like there's a lack of a dedicated PvP space, right? And that's not what the Dark Zone is. I think we all agree that that's not it. But for people who are craving that type of gameplay, they're trying to, and I speculate, they're trying to recreate that dedicated PvP type of gameplay in a space that really doesn't support it, which is problematic. To say the least. So we hear you on that for sure.
In the Dark Zone, you're in a situation where PvP players are looking for PvP and you have PvE players that are looking for PvE. And no matter what you're looking for, you're going to be encountering the players that are looking for the other thing.
Yeah, there you go.
That's, no matter what, that's going to be a frustrating experience.
Yeah, MTTHK.
People are asking about fixes and everything. So just to be clear, so there was no fixes today. We didn't do any update or any patch. That doesn't mean we won't do it anymore. And when we talk about like big work with all the balancing things and all that what we've talked about, that doesn't mean we are not going to be doing bug fixes in between. So just because we didn't do anything this week doesn't mean we are not going to do anything in the next weeks. We will, but as far as addressing the things that we talked about now, this is something we'll be giving you more visibility on in the weeks to come, because we want to work with you on how to actually address that. And we want to make sure to involve you in the process. So right now, today, we just really wanted to give you visibility on the things that we are looking at and we are aware of. But we are not, so far, we are not talking about how we're going to fix it yet. So 47% of active players that played in the last 7 days are actually gear score 230 plus, which is interesting. What's also interesting is that we have 23% that are between 200 and 230. And we have 30% that are actually below 200. And we're talking active players here. We're not talking people who stop playing. We're talking active players. So that's interesting.
That is interesting. Obviously, that could be players who have been newly acquired. Like if you've just bought the game in the last 7 days, you're going to be below gear score 200. But still, that was surprising to me. The last one, because we've run way over time, but this is fun. Gear score is not important. Turbo beat port, I wouldn't say it's not important. It's not important as an indicator of your skill or even the power of your gear. It's loosely indicative, but I get what you're talking about.
Yeah. You might be right, Dark Knight 2's saying it's new alts. It could be. Could also be.
You what?
New alts. The characters that are gear score 200, below 200.
Yeah.
Could be that it's not particularly like players. It might just be alt characters.
Oh, that's true. Okay, incursions percentage. This is interesting. Let me phrase the question so I don't mess it up this time. We have 3 different ones. Obviously, we have Clear Sky, Falcon's Lost, and Dragon's Nest.
Yeah.
Of those active players, how many of our weekly active players would you say are playing Dragon's Nest? So every week, if you're an active player, how many of those active players are playing Dragon's Nest? Obviously, that you could take into account things like the 4 horsemen farming that people are doing, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Someone says all of them.
Somebody said 100. I didn't play Dragon's Nest, so I'm guilty. So I'm the reason why it's not 100. Oh, that's not true. I played Dragon's Nest once, but it was not in the last 7 days.
Okay. I've done it a bit. 4 horsemen farming? Yeah, so a lot of people are doing a thing, which we have said is not an exploit, it's a legitimate. You're using game mechanics, it's totally cool. Where you go and you complete the 4 horsemen, you get their drops, you restart the whole thing. That's fine. This includes farming. All right. Actually, only 14% of players active players play Dragon's Nest.
And that's participated in Dragon's Nest. Doesn't mean they actually succeeded. Doesn't mean they went to the end. So it could be people that are also doing the 4 horsemen farming, definitely. But
exactly, 14%. And so for Falcon's Lost, it's 8%.
100 minus Yannick. Yeah.
8% of active players doing Falcon's Lost. I think those are the people looking for Sentry, obviously. 4% of players looking at Clear Sky. We did know that Clear Sky would be the least when you said this to me. I had the order correct when we talked about this earlier, but I didn't get the numbers right.
I personally, at first I would have thought that Falcon's Lost was the one that people were playing the least, just because
it's oldest,
it's older and it's annoying. At least I find it annoying. But on the other hand, you get Sentry out of it, so I guess
that's true. And I mean, if anyone's running a Deadeye build, they may be in Clear Sky trying to get Hunter's Faith 2-piece, maybe. So there's that. But again, yeah, that Sentry farm, and then obviously the 4 horsemen farm for Dragon's Nest. So that's it.
Clear Sky sucks. Yeah, apparently at least.
I don't think Clear Sky sucks, but
having only 4% people doing it shows that it doesn't have to be the incursion. I think it's also the rewards that go out of it. Obviously, I'm pretty sure if we would ask you if you prefer Falcon Lost to Clear Sky, I'm not sure it's a matter of do you enjoy doing it. It's more what reward do you get out of it.
Exactly. So.
Which is a problem.
Yes, it is a problem, for sure. We're way over time.